Welcome to my 2025 beauty predictions video. This is consistently my favorite video that I film every single year. Not to pat myself on the back, but I did a pretty good job with my 2024 predictions. Almost all of them came true, right down to my very specific product launch predictions. I'm so excited to talk about that today. This video will be split up into a lot of different sections, so feel free to use the chapters function to skip around to different ones. But we're gonna start with a reflection on my 2024 predictions. After that, we'll jump into what I'm seeing for 2025. And finally, we're gonna look into the trademarks at the end of the video. I found a lot of trademarks from our favorite brands that are gonna give us some hints to what we'll probably be launching in the new year. Okay, let's reflect on my 2024 predictions. So some general trends I thought we would see in makeup. A big shift away from the pink blush. Now, obviously pink blush has sustained popularity throughout 2024, but you could certainly say it's on a downward slope. So a lot of trends fall on a curve like this, and you can really see them pick up steam, hit their peak before they eventually start falling back down. I think pink blush is far over the hump and it's on its way out, and it's been replaced quite a bit in 2024 with more of those peachy tones. If not peaches, we're seeing more desaturated tones of blush that aren't quite as vibrant as the blushes that were popular years prior. Also, a lot of nude and beige blushes gained popularity in 2024. I also specifically noted that we would move away from blush being as bold as it was, and blush would start looking a little bit more seamless on the face. Whereas in 2022 and 2023 in particular, blush was a really noticeable pop on the face. Like you could identify where the blush began and ended. And I said in 2024, we would start moving away from that. And we've certainly seen that through the rise of blush blindness being a conversation in 2024. Everyone's saying like, are we wearing too much blush? Which I don't think that ever has to be a thing. I've spoken about how I think like blush blindness, eyebrow blindness is a silly concept, but it's undeniable that there's been the beginning transition away from that really bold blush look that has dominated these last few years. I also said we'd start seeing doll blush, basically just a lower placement of blush, which we did, but we didn't see it named doll blush. We saw it named boyfriend blush, but in 2024, people started transitioning their blush from being up here to being a little bit lower on the face for more of a rounded, maybe even like youthful look, a little bit less makeup-y. The idea of makeup that doesn't necessarily look like makeup has been really popular throughout 2024, and I spoke extensively about this in this video that I will leave linked down below where I reflected on 2024 beauty trends. But I talked about the undetectable era of beauty that we're in right now, and that was a term that was first coined to describe natural looking plastic surgery, but I would make the argument that those concepts have really filtered down into the way that we're applying makeup on a day-to-day basis, and people want to look like they're wearing makeup that doesn't look like product. They don't want to see it on the skin. They want it to look as if it's their actual face. And I think that's a big part of the reason we've seen that switch away from the really prominent, bold, bright blush shades being higher on the face, seeing those swapped out for blush shades that are a bit more desaturated and a blush look that's much lower and more natural on the face. One that I predicted that we kind of saw, kind of did not, was something that I called the pop. I said in 2024, we would really see makeup looks always having a pop. And it could be anywhere on the face. You know, the pop could be a really bold eyeliner. The pop could be a bright red lip. The pop could be a really sparkly inner corner, but there was gonna be something to draw visual interest to one area on the face that was really gonna take that star moment. And the way I've seen the pop kind of manifest in 2024, and I would say maybe I'll give myself partial credit on this one, was with lip liner. That was something I specifically noted in the video. I thought lip liner was gonna be really huge in 2024, but specifically a bold and defined lip line that really wasn't as blended in as we had seen in prior years. Like a lip liner that was much darker, much more prominent, and poppy. And that was kind of what I talked about in the video, that stark lip line look would kind of be an extension of the idea of the pop. But for hair trends, we definitely saw my predictions in here. I said that it would be the year of less sleek hair and more undone hair. And we really saw that play out with the slick back bun kind of losing some popularity. Obviously, that's a classic look that will always be timeless to have your hair slicked back, but it was so much more prominent years prior than it was in 2024. I think that's for a few reasons. The first one just being that trends swing like a pendulum. So because we were so into a perfected slicked back look, inevitably we would be chasing something a bit more undone. But I think another big catalyst for the downfall of the slick back hairdo, I'm being dramatic obviously, but I think a big part of it was a lot of people have started losing hair along their hairline because for the last few years, it has been so hyper popular to wear a very tight, slick back look, and not all hair types and textures are ideal for doing that. I know for myself, I have very fine hair, so it's very prone to breakage. I can't wear that type of look too often without getting a lot of hairline breakage. I know a lot of people have said that they've started running into that. And inevitably, I think that kind of led to those looks being less popular in 2024. I also said I thought we'd see more of like an I didn't do my hair, undone hair type of look. And we didn't see this as much as I anticipated. We did a little bit, but I thought it would be more of that undone, messy wave, or even people just embracing their natural hair texture, regardless of like how curly or wavy you sit on the scale. I thought we would have seen more of that in 2024, but we did a little bit, but we didn't quite. But part of the reason I believed that we would, and I still think we might, possibly moving into the new year, is because that feels like an extension of the undetectable era. It's kind of the idea of, I didn't even style my hair. This is just my hair's natural texture, whether it is or isn't. It's about things looking less perfected and looking more undone. That's what's been so popular for a few years now. I also said the bob was here to stay. We have certainly seen that happen. I also talked extensively about side parts and side bangs. I've been saying that for years now. We've definitely seen that, but the side bang in particular is one I think is just kind of starting to gain some momentum, and I think will be even bigger in 2025. We've seen a lot of celebrities that have been known for their curtain bangs start pushing them over to the side, doing side bangs, a little bit from Sabrina Carpenter, the curtain bang queen. So we've started to see that one pick up, but I think inevitably it's going to get even more popular in 2025. As people are moving their center parts over to side parts again. Those were the general predictions I saw for 2024, but zooming in on the launch predictions, I said every brand's gonna come out with brown mascara. That was definitely the case. I said every brand would be coming out with different like branded bags and pouches. I don't think we saw this necessarily the way I anticipated that we would, but I spoke in that predictions video about the idea of brands trying to sell us a lifestyle, almost through merch. And I don't think my prediction came true in the sense of branded bags being as popular as I anticipated, but we could definitely say 2024 was a big year for pushing merch. I did an entire video about this, of brands trying to sell us the idea of their brand over their products and selling that through merch, whether that's sweatshirts, charms were huge this year, even Ulta Beauty doing their collaboration with mini brands and selling toy versions of their makeup products. Like, it was a big year for makeup adjacent merch. So I'm gonna say I got this one semi-right with the idea of like merch products and selling the fantasy of the brand, but it wasn't all pouch focused the way I thought that it might have been. I said squeeze tube lip balms had one more year of popularity. That's definitely been the case, but again, if we're looking on that arch, I think they're still popular, but on their way down there for sure. I said the fragrance boom would continue to expand with every brand launching body sprays. That certainly came true in 2024. I thought we would see this pushed even more through like room sprays, scented detergent that matches your fragrance, hair perfumes, like fragrance in every sense of the word. We are seeing the beginning stages of this in 2024, but I think 2025 is when I anticipate this happening even more. I think that's just such an untapped market considering the popularity of fragrance right now, which is something I also talked extensively about in that 2024 Wrapped video. Ooh, I said body care would introduce us to problems we didn't even know we had and then sell us the solution, which I mean, on some level, that's just the foundation of the beauty industry. But a way we saw this manifest in 2024 that I didn't quite see coming was through whole care. Again, I'll leave that 2024 video down below because we talked a lot about whole care in that video, but a lot of brands launched products for your bum, different serums, different everything. We don't have to get into that. I said every brand would launch lip liners this year. They did. I'm just a few off the top of my head. Say, Refi, we saw Rhodes coming out with them. e.l.f. launched lip liners this year. There were a lot. I also said hair would focus really heavily on scalp care, which I do feel like we've seen, but maybe not on the level that I anticipated. But my product specific launches, this is what I really wanted to reflect on because these, I think I did a great job with. I said Patrick Ta would launch a foundation. He did. I said Makeup by Mario would launch another palette. It would either be Ethereal Eyes 2 or Master Mattes 2. And then he did. I said Kosas would launch a baked blush. This was actually my prediction in 2023. And when we didn't see it that year, I carried it over and said, okay, it didn't come out in 2023. It's coming in 2024. And then it did. They launched their baked blushes this year. I said Glow Recipe would launch another makeup adjacent product. We got at least two, you could say, with the hue drops in bronze and then pretty recently in pink. I said REM would launch a sweetener powder. This did not happen, but I think I still see this on the horizon for 2025. This feels like such a missing piece in their line, especially considering that Ariana herself wears such matte makeup looks. Like the brand not having a powder feels like a missed opportunity for me. I said House Labs would launch a brow line. That didn't happen, but maybe 2025. I said Urban Decay would do something new with the Moon Dust name. So that was probably the easiest prediction. That's like the free spot on a bingo card. It's like, well, duh, of course they were going to. But something I thought they would do that they didn't really lean into the way I think they should is Moon Dust everything. Like this needs to be an entire line for them. Like initially those were the shadows, but they should be launching a sparkly highlighter, sparkly lip glosses, sparkly eyeliner. Like they've had sparkly eyeliners before, but they just relaunch everything under the Moon Dust line, like call it, or even Space Cowboy. In the past, the lines that have been really popular for Urban Decay have been Naked and All Nighter, and then they've continued to recycle that name into everything, put it under the Naked line, the All Nighter line. Like this is their chance to do the Space Cowboy line and just do a really sparkly, scattered look and infuse that into every makeup product over the face. Like we saw them leaning very heavily into the names Moon Dust and Space Cowboy, but I feel like they really only scratched the surface of where they could take that name. Like there's so much they could do with that, especially considering the popularity of it. My merit predictions did not come true. I said they would expand the Solo Shadows line, give us shimmer shades. I know they had like a limited edition one before, but I thought this would be a permanent addition to the line. We did not see that. I think they should. I said they would come out with like a medium opacity lip crayon. They did not do that. I think they should though. My e.l.f. predictions though, possibly my most spot on predictions yet. I actually was shocked when I watched the video back because I mentioned everything I thought e.l.f. would dupe this year and they duped pretty much every single one. I said they would dupe the Rare Beauty blushes. They did. I said they would dupe the Tarte Juicy Lip Plump. They did. I said they would dupe the Drunk Elephant bronzer drops. They did. And I also said they would dupe the Hourglass powders. And I don't know if they did yet. Trendmood just announced a powder from e.l.f. I don't think these are supposed to be dupes for the Drunk Elephant ones, at least at the time I'm filming this. We'll get more information in the next few days, hopefully. But those appear to be pressed powders and not baked powders like the Hourglass ones. But I was seeing so many comments saying, are these trying to dupe the ambient lighting powders? And the description sounded like ambient lighting powders, so who knows? Maybe that prediction will come true. And then I said another luxury brand would come into Ulta. I mentioned possibly Charlotte Tilbury, and as we know, Charlotte Tilbury came into Ulta. Okay, so that was my rundown of 2024. I'm pretty proud of those predictions. I think they almost all came true with a few exceptions, but let's talk about what I'm seeing in 2025. So just to kick things off with the theme for the year, you might have heard Pantone just announced their color of the year for 2025. It is Mocha Mousse. So if you remember, Peach Fuzz was the color of the year for 2024. And I do think we saw that in makeup, especially with a lot of peach themed launches. The color of the year doesn't always like manifest in like things you're gonna be seeing everywhere, but I do think it's relevant to the conversation. So I like to point that out. I think it's interesting that this is a brown shade. It's very neutral. I would not be surprised to see this a lot in the new year, both in packaging and product shades, but let's start off with my general trend predictions for 2025. Again, we're kind of starting here as far out as we can, and then as we progress, I'm going to zoom further and further in. But speaking really generally in the start here, I am anticipating that we're going to see something that I have named amplified flaws. I think 2025 is going to be all about amplified flaws. The fundamental idea of this is leaning into things that the beauty industry has taught us to correct. And you could make the argument that the idea of amplified flaws has been gaining momentum for a few years now. Think about people drawing on their freckles. Think about the 2024 trend of putting darker product on your under eyes to even emphasize under eye bags. I think this idea is going to be a through line in 2025 in a lot of different makeup trends because I think it serves two very different camps. And let me explain that. So once again, referencing my beauty wrap up from 2024. I know I'm referencing it a lot. I will actually put it in a pinned comment down below if you haven't seen it. Definitely check it out. But in that video, again, talking about the idea of undetectable beauty, I spoke extensively about people wanting their makeup to look natural and undetectable. When you look at someone, it doesn't look like they really have any product on. And related to that, I was reading an interesting piece from beauty writer Jessica DeFino that she posted to her Substack about veneers. And she talked about how people want fake teeth that look real. And I think this idea carries over really well into this undetectable concept where people are now seeking out veneers that have almost some flaws to them. Like they don't look too chiclet perfect because you want to see the teeth and you don't want to immediately recognize that they're fake. You almost need some flaws there so they look realistic even though they're not realistic. And that's where I think this amplified flaws idea is going to come into play in 2025 because I think it's going to serve that very perfected beauty look while also still not looking like too fake. But I think it's also going to serve people that want to rebel from that overly perfect beauty image that's been so popular. I'm gonna say for the last few years, but like truly forever. But I think it really serves as a rebellion to that, to darken your under eye bags. I think it serves as a rebellion to that, to wear pimple patches in public, which has been so popular for years now. Wearing like stickers essentially on your face feels like a way to amplify and draw attention to a perceived flaw. And I'm putting this in air quotes every single time because I don't think these are flaws. But I think again, it's gonna serve both of those directions. The people that are looking for that undetectable look, like the way to make it look undetectable is to then go back in and draw your beauty marks back on over the makeup so you almost can't tell you're wearing makeup. It's serving those people that want to fit into that undetectable desire, but it's also serving people that want to rebel from that. You know, choosing to darken those under eye circles. Something I saw recently was someone amplifying their eyebrow cowlick. So her eyebrow kind of like goes a different direction in the front. And a lot of people would choose to take their brow gel and swoop the hairs over to the side so everything is uniform. No, this person actually emphasized that the brow hairs are going different directions just to lean into the natural beauty that she has with that eyebrow cowlick. Again, amplified flaws. I think that's going to be a really overarching trend. That's why I'm kind of starting on the top here. I think it's going to be just a through line in 2025 of the way that we're interacting with makeup. And this has been a bit predictable through some smaller trends we've observed in 2024. I'm specifically thinking of the anti-Botox trend or anti-Botox makeup that started like gaining some momentum in late summer, where people would really squint their eyes and then do eyeshadow here, and then you open your eye and you have this beautiful almost like butterfly effect. Well, you can only achieve that look if you have the movement on your face there, and a lot of people were saying, you know, this is a celebration of those natural wrinkles and crow's feet in our faces. So amplified flaws, that's number one. Number two, chaos packaging. This is not a term that I came up with. We've seen this idea gaining momentum for years now, and I think 2025 is when it's all gonna come to a head. Products that look like something else. I mean, a great 2024 example was the NYX glue primers that looked like Elmer's glue from my childhood. Obviously, we have the vacation, like whipped cream sunscreen. This has expanded far beyond beauty into other product categories as well, but I think we're gonna see it big time in 2025. Not necessarily so much from like the established and or legacy brands, but for brands that are trying to cut through and get the attention of consumers in a really competitive market, I think they're gonna lean into this chaos packaging. I think of Vacation as a brand. You know, they haven't been around that long, but they have so much attention because their products look cool. Like they've found a way to package them in a really retro way that still feels modern. This idea of chaos packaging leads to a ton of free advertising for the brands because people want to showcase that in videos. They want to take a picture of that and post that more than they would want to take a picture and share just a regular product in regular packaging. And also under the idea of kind of just like free advertising, a trend we'll see from brands in 2025 is increased attention on experiential marketing. Certainly not anything new, but it's going to be even bigger in 2025. You know, once again, I keep referencing this graph, but they're on their way up. I don't think they've hit the peak yet when I'm considering things like pop-up events. Oh my gosh, pop-ups were huge for brands in 2024. I think of a few specifically that Rhode did. And actually, here in New York City, Rhode did a pop-up that reached capacity hours before they opened. So they had a pop-up, I believe it was in Soho. People started lining up outside hours before it opened, and it was a few hours before the event even began that the line was at capacity. So if you weren't already in the line hours before the event started, you weren't even gonna be able to go to the event. And then the event is you just being inside and having the opportunity to shop these products in person. But the reason I see this being so successful is that, Rhode's not a brand you can buy in store. They don't have any brick and mortar presence. You can only buy them online. You can't buy them even from other retailers. So people want to interact with the product in person. This gives them the opportunity to do that. Especially knowing that this brand is aligned with Hailey Bieber. There was also that idea of, maybe I'll get to meet her. She was there for a little bit. There's again that draw for consumers through that. The advertising is built in because everyone wants to share that they were at this Rhode event. These sales are built in because if you waited in line for hours and hours, obviously you're gonna buy something. You're not just gonna walk in, look around, and then head out. Like, this is a gold mine for these brands to do these little pop-up events. And I think we're gonna see them get even bigger, more elaborate. I'm thinking different partnerships with cafes. A lot of luxury fashion brands have been doing this. I think it's gonna spill over into beauty brands as well. We've seen collaborations where you'll do a partnership with a coffee shop and then they'll put the logo for the brand on the coffee. Again, the consumer is going to take a photo of that and they're going to post it because it looks cool. And then again, you've generated all this attention. You don't have to pay them to do it. They're kind of paying to be at the event because they're buying products. I anticipate that being huge in 2024. Okay, for general makeup trends that I think we will be wearing in 2025, under makeup, bronzer, okay? It's bronzer. This is something I predicted for 2024 that we've started to see, but again, if we're looking on the graph, it's still growing in momentum. And this feels like the inevitable swing the opposite direction from the blush trend, but B, it also falls in line with a lot of predictions I've been seeing about 2000s makeup making a comeback. I did a video about this earlier this year, actually pretty recently. Bronzer was very big in the early 2000s. We weren't wearing super apparent blush. It was all about a really bold, all over bronzy look. I think that's gonna gain a lot of momentum in the new year. And I can already even see my brain transforming into this thought process. Like, the other day I did my makeup and I was with my friend and I said to her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never think this normally, but I had just put my blush on and I'm like, it looked better before I added blush. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already starting to happen to me. I'm like, my early 2000s brain is coming back where I'm like, no, this would be better if I didn't have on blush, which is probably not always the case, but I think we're gonna again be swapping out some of those brighter blushes for tones that are more muted, more neutral, almost kind of seamlessly blend in with the bronzer. Another overall makeup trend I see happening for 2025 is a very doll-like look, and I especially see this manifesting in eyeshadow trends. So for a few years now, it's been all about a very elongated, lifted eye, winged eyeliner with every look, everything going up and out. I talked a lot in my early 2000s makeup video about how early 2000s makeup was not about your eye going up and out. It was about your eye being very open, lifted, doll-like almost. I think we're gonna see this play out in 2025, even just in a subtle way. Things like lash preferences. We've been really into a flared out cat eye half lash for a few years now. I think people are gonna be opting for longer lashes in the center of the eye, which I know feels a bit strange, but the center of the eye being longer can really open and lift the eye. I think we'll even see things like manga lashes, which are a lot more popular in Asian beauty, where the lashes kind of have longer points and they're a little bit more defined versus being really spread out and fluffy like that. That again helps contribute to that really open, almost doll-like appearance. I also wouldn't be surprised to see clear mascara gain popularity in 2025. And you might be thinking, okay, wait a minute, we're talking general trends here. Why aren't you putting that in product trends that you think you'll see? Because I don't necessarily think brands are going to be launching clear mascaras this year, though I'm sure one or two of them might. I don't know that I see that in launches yet, but I see that as a desire that people are going to start seeking out, like trying to find and wear clear mascara, because that feels very aligned with the 2024 trend of no mascara that we've been seeing everywhere, where people want to look like they just have naturally bold, fluffy lashes, but they don't want it to look like they have any mascara on. They want that curled, lifted look where you can't see product. Well, that's what clear mascara does. And then this one could be a wild card, but I think that sponge tip applicators are going to come back into popularity. Again, not necessarily in terms of launches. I don't necessarily think brands are going to be launching sponge tip applicators, but I think consumers are going to be seeking them out the same way we've seen like velour puffs have such a resurgence in popularity after being like extinct for years. Now everyone has a velour puff to do their makeup. I could see that happening for sponge tip eyeshadow applicators too, because not only do they really amplify the eyeshadow, but they also are great for someone who has long nails and can't apply an eyeshadow with their finger. It gives a better effect, in my opinion, than a brush because it packs it on better with less fallout. Like, I'm surprised sponge chip applicators haven't come back in popularity. Okay, my hair predictions. The first one is hyper specific, but I think we're gonna see the popularity of like twisted back front pieces come back. And I know that sounds so random, but hear me out. I had a little inkling of this possibly coming back, just considering the cyclical nature of trends. You know, we have passed the like Y2K era and we're more into like the actual like first 10 or so years of the early 2000s. And I'm thinking like, you know, a little bit past those like very early Y2K days, like this was really popular to wear your hair like that. You know, Lauren Conrad was the queen of this. So in some ways that's felt a bit inevitable, but we've started to see this from a lot of the it girls that people tend to follow for hair and makeup trends. Kendall Jenner wore her hair like that for the Met Gala this year, and recently for her birthday, Hailey Bieber had the twisted back hair at her party, so I would not be surprised if that style came back. Not that that was ever like out, but it's certainly been less popular than it was back in the day. I also think pin straight hair is due for a comeback. That again feels like the pendulum swinging the opposite direction from that big, fluffy, voluminous blowout that's been so popular. Now I could see that pin straight hair. Also feels very aligned with 2000s trends. And then this one, I don't necessarily predict as much as I desire a chunky headband to come back. I know chunky cloth headbands have been pretty big, but I want like an actual headband to come back. Again, in a very Lauren Conrad type of way, like a thick, chunky polka dot headband. I don't know that I see that coming back, but I want that. And maybe I will bring that back just for myself. Okay. All right, we're zooming in now to product launches. So these aren't my brand specific launches yet. These are just general themes I think we'll see big time in 2025. And the first thing I anticipate seeing is not necessarily a product type, but it is a word, and it is the word blur. Expect that to be all over everything in beauty in 2025. In product descriptions, in product names, in the advertising for products, like everything's gonna be about a blur. You know, we've had the Refi Lip Blur, that's their liners. We had also recently the Huda Beauty Easy Blur. Everyone seems to be desiring that blurred out, almost soft focused look. And I think that language of like blur, soft focus is gonna be big next year. Even the idea of the lip liner kind of being blurred, being less precise and sharp than it previously was. Like things again, just being more undetectable. Not as defined, but blurred out almost. Obviously bronzers, okay? I think bronzer is gonna be a big trend for people to wear and apply in 2025. And naturally, a lot of brands will probably be launching bronzers in 2025. I think if it's not bronzers, the blush shades we're gonna see are gonna be more nudes, peaches, beiges, things that look kind of bronzy. Perhaps another wild card here, but I think dusting powders are gonna be big in 2025. So I'm talking like old school, like fragranced powders that you're putting over your body. Allure posted an article recently about dusting powders coming back. And I've seen a lot of people making DIY versions on the internet, just like going to the dollar store, making their own powder in a jar. And I think with the rise in popularity of that, merged with the sustained popularity of fragrance, this feels inevitable that in 2025, some beauty and or fragrance brands will be launching dusting powders with like their fragrance line. Two that I specifically identified that I could see this with that I think would fit well into their brand. I think Fenty would be a great candidate to launch a dusting powder for their perfume. They have a pretty popular perfume. I've always said it's not my favorite, but it's actually grown on me. They've got it in a solid version already, so it would make sense that they're kind of experimenting with other versions of it, like a powder. But I could also see it for Glossier with You. I see it for Fenty more, but I want to see it for Glossier. Like I want to pitch this to Glossier. Like you need to do a dusting powder of You, especially because this year they gave us 2 new versions of You. Like that's such a star product for them. This just feels like another way to reintroduce it to consumers. I know I told you I'd save the product specific ones. We'll get into those later, but I thought I'd give you a sneak peek. I think Glossier, Fenty, I don't know that they will launch dusting powders, but they should. I also said untraditional powder colors. So we've seen this a bit already throughout 2024. Every brand launched a pink and a peach powder, some yellow powders as well. 2025, that is not stopping. Again, we are still on the way up there. We're gonna see a lot of lilac powders, I'm thinking. I know Huda Beauty just posted kind of a teaser of like a very purple powder. I think that would be beautiful on more of a medium to deep skin tone, but I don't think it's gonna stop there. I'm thinking like very subtle undertones of powders, whether that's even like a blue powder. So maybe you finish your makeup and you're like, I'm looking a little bit yellow. You take your powder that has a bit of a blue undertone to it. No, I'm talking subtle here, but it brightens, it kind of color corrects. We're gonna continue to see a lot more pink, peach, and yellow powders in the new year, maybe even some green, some lilac, some blue, but all like very subtle, just like a really subtle undertone of that shade, as well as multi-use products. We've seen a lot of popularity from people like seeking out a bronzer type product, essentially the idea of a product that could be used as a blush and a bronzer in one. I think brands will be launching more products that kind of advertise themselves as that. Like obviously Bare Minerals has had their bronzers for 3 years now, but I think more brands will be doing that type of product, or like blush toppers, like products that do multiple things at once. And then it's gonna be really sold to the consumer as like simplifying your life, which is funny considering you probably already have those products, but now they've just sold them to you as a 2-in-1. But I think that will be popular in the new year. I also think it'll be a big year for at-home devices. You know, we've seen this a lot with microcurrent devices, red light devices, high frequency. I've seen some brands do like even at-home laser treatments you can do on your face. Even beyond this, I've seen people doing their own lash lift at home, dyeing their hair at home, doing their nails at home, which is funny, I don't have any nails on right now, but like press on nails. Like everything is gonna be available for you to do at home. DIY lash kits, like these have been big for years now. I think we're gonna continue to see that in even more ways in 2025. But let's zoom in even more to my product specific launches. So these are the things that I'm anticipating from different brands in 2025. Now, to be clear, I have looked into trademarks for a lot of these brands. That will be the next segment in the video. Everything I'm about to mention now, as far as I know, has not been trademarked. I haven't seen this anywhere. I have no reason to believe this other than I just think it will happen. The first one comes from Milk Makeup, and it is a bronzer version of the Milk Jelly blushes. Those were the #1 product of the year, according to Women's Wear Daily. They were one of the worst products of the year, according to me, but they were super popular, and that's undeniable. So inevitably, Milk is going to capitalize on this in 2025, bringing us a new version of it, and it feels predictable that it could likely be a bronzer. I think Tower 28 is due for a foundation. So obviously they have kind of a like coverage product right now that's like a tinted sunscreen, but I think they're going to give us more of a true form of a foundation. And I think it's gonna align pretty well with the concealer. It's gonna kind of be in a similar line, even use a similar like naming pattern. I wouldn't be surprised if they called it the Swipe All Over Hydrating Serum Foundation, because that's basically what they called the concealer. For Patrick Ta, I think he's going to launch a concealer and then a loose powder. I think these are kind of two holes in the line that would make a lot of sense. He does have a powder, but I think a loose powder, possibly even in a few different shades, like the colorful shades I was referencing earlier. This feels like something that would really round out his line well, especially considering he launched a foundation this year. It seems inevitable that at some point we're gonna get a corresponding concealer. Knowing the prices we've seen from Patrick Ta this year, I'm sure they will also be wildly expensive, but I think those are definitely coming at some point, probably in 2025. Going back to Glossier, I don't know if I see them doing a dusting powder version of You, but I want them to do a dusting powder version of You. I really think in 2025, we will see more Glossier launches than we're used to, especially now considering that they have entered Sephora. We do tend to see brands kind of ramp up their launches at that point. If it's not the dusting powder version of You, we'll definitely see some new iteration of You. A prediction I made in 2024 that I referenced earlier that we didn't see, that I'm still holding out for in 2025, is a powder from REM. I think they would probably name it the Sweetener powder to fall in line with the Sweetener concealer and foundation. This is another thing that just kind of feels like a hole in the line, and I was pretty surprised to see that they didn't launch it in 2024. One that I don't necessarily predict, but I am pushing for, okay? I'm hoping, this is what they should do. I don't know that they will, but this is what they should do. Stila should relaunch their liquid shimmer eyeshadows. I could see them relaunching a version of this that has a pretty sheer base to it, but a really noticeable sparkle topper type of look. These type of shadows have been popular for a few years now, and Stila was known for having like the it sparkly shadow a few years back. So this would be the perfect timeline to reintroduce that in a slightly more modern adaptation that has less of that base, but more of that just like sparkle topper look. It could be so popular. Again, I don't think they'll do that, but Stila, you should do that. From Rare Beauty, I think we will get another bronzer. So they do have a bronzer stick right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also launched a powder bronzer and probably a baked powder bronzer in similar packaging to the blush they launched this year or the highlight that they already had. I wouldn't anticipate this to be as like highlighter glowy as those products, but I could certainly see them doing a bronzer in that same style of packaging. If not a powder bronzer, potentially a liquid bronzer, but I think there's room for another bronzer in the Rare Beauty lineup for sure. Maybe even like they could probably do like bronzer drops. Every brand gave us bronzer drops in 2024. I'm sure a few more stragglers will be launching them in 2025 as well. For Kosas, I could see them launching a loose version of their Cloud Set powder. This has been a super popular powder for them, so much so that they launched new shades of it this year. We got the pink, the peach, and the orange. No, pink, peach, and yellow. I could see them doing a loose powder version of this, especially because satin and matte looks have been pretty popular. You know, this is something I referenced in my previous predictions video, and we've certainly seen them gain momentum this year over the like hyper dewy look that was popular a few years prior. I think e.l.f. will try to dupe the jelly blushes from Milk Makeup. This would fit really well into e.l.f.'s line because they had the Jelly Pop line that they've had before and then brought back. I think this could be really easily introduced in a very organic way to the e.l.f. line. So let's talk about the trademarks. If you're not familiar, trademarks are public information. You can easily go and access these. Now, trademarks in beauty are interesting because not every brand trademarks everything. Not every trademark becomes a product. So this could be a dead end, but it also could give us some hints to what we might be seeing in the new year. So starting with an update on Natasha Denona. So I mentioned last year that they had trademarked Hot Topic, so spelled like a play on words of taupe, but they have abandoned that trademark, but requested an extension on time to the trademark on Brune, which is brown in French. I could definitely see a very neutral brown palette coming from the brand, considering they had a few names picked out as potential options for it. I think it will probably be the Brune palette, which again fits back into the color of the year. They also trademarked High Sculpt Liquid Bronzer. So this makes a lot of sense for me considering their High Glam Concealer. It kind of similar naming mechanism here of like the HY and then the word. So it seems like we'll probably be getting a liquid bronzer from Natasha Denona in the new year. This one was a bit random. I don't know how to interpret this one, but Kosas trademarked Shiny Objects on September 20th of this year. I could see that being a highlighter. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw very sparkly highlighters reemerge in 2025. I don't even want to say reemerge. I would say for a while now, people have shied away from highlighters that are sparkly. Like even in the peak of the highlighter craze, like people still wanted their highlight to not be sparkly, but these days, with the popularity of scattered eyeshadow toppers, I wouldn't be surprised to see really noticeable sparkles kind of gain momentum at some point. That being said, I don't know if that's what this is from Kosas. I could see it being a base product with some glow. Could even be merch. I don't know. A lot of brands have been doing charms. It could be a lot of things. Let me know what you think. It seems like Rare Beauty will be launching a recycling program at some point because they trademarked Rare Cycle and the description says a mail back recycling program. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. MAC had their back to MAC program before where you would save, I believe it was 5 products, send it in and you could get a product back. These type of programs really encourage brand loyalty, which I'm sure is really important for brands right now when so many consumers are brand agnostic and they don't necessarily stick to one brand or another when purchasing. I'm not surprised to see brands kind of seeking out ways to build in that customer loyalty, and having a mail back program definitely serves that purpose. KELLYG trademarked this under Huda because it's kind of all under one. They trademarked Milk Musk Oud on June 10th. I want to smell that. That sounds like it would be a fantastic fragrance. I'm sure that one's coming pretty soon. Even thinking about fragrance direction in the new year, I could see a lot of very lactonic scents becoming popular. A lot of brands have been doing more of a creamy, milky scent profile, which maybe I'm saying I see this because I just personally love it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that gain momentum in 2025. Makeup by Mario trademarked Master Mascara on October 15th. So it seems like they will probably be launching a mascara. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes in multiple shades of like a black and a brown. Seems like we'll be getting a mascara from them soon. Considering when it was trademarked though, I don't think we'll see this right away, maybe more like mid-year, even early fall from Makeup by Mario. Something interesting I found from Rhode isn't necessarily gonna be coming from Rhode the brand, but let me explain. So their trademarks are under HR Beauty LLC, which is where Hailey's brand is under. They trademarked R, and they first filed it in 2023 and then again in September of 2024. And the description says clothing, footwear, and headgear. So this feels similar to the merch concept that we talked about earlier with brands coming out with this. I don't know if this is something she would do separately from her beauty brand or if it would be together, but it feels very similar to her husband's brand, Drew House, where he has clothing. So I would not be surprised to see some apparel coming from Rhode in the new year. If not from Rhode, maybe just from Hailey. I think the name R kind of does lead me to believe it could be under Rhode, especially considering how popular like the phone cases were. This was a type of merch that the brand played with. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the clothing kind of fall in line with that as well. Similarly, Rihanna's LLC also trademarked Fenty 88. And the description says bandanas, belts for clothings, bottoms being clothings, caps, headwear, like it's just all apparel. Now, obviously she already has Savage X Fenty. This could be affiliated with that, but I wonder if it's gonna be with the makeup brand. Now, 88 is probably for her birth year. She was born in 1988. So we'll see if that goes more towards like the Savage side of things or more like makeup related merch. In June, Glossier trademarked Skylight, and the description says cosmetics, makeup, beauty, skin products. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a glowy primer. Those have been pretty popular. My first thought was some sort of highlighting product, but they already do have that. So I could see this being some sort of a base product. And it seems like Saie will also be launching some sort of a base glowy product like this as well, because they trademarked both Saie Glow and then the Art of Glow. So Saie Glow was trademarked first in November, and then the Art of Glow was trademarked about 1 month later. I don't think these are going to be two separate products. I think they're still deciding on a name. It seems like it's going to be some sort of like hybrid skincare makeup product. I'm assuming like a primer or a base product, because the description says cosmetic preparations for skincare and makeup. And that's what I think we're gonna be seeing in 2025. Let me know your predictions down below. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.